Hey, hello everyone. Welcome. I swear this is not the third time, and I promise you I did not spend at least 15 minutes talking to no one. My name's Indigo, and I'm going to be going through the notes and how I have been putting my notes together for Court of Corvids, which is going to be our long-running Pathfinder 2nd Edition actual play. This is a concept that I came up with. It's kind of something I've been wanting to do for a while, and second edition ended up coming out in a really good time for me to be able to actually put my thoughts together and put it in. So today we're going to be going over basic concept of how I've put my notes together and why I put my notes together that way. And then I'm going to be going over my plans and what direction I want to take Court of Corvids, why I came up with the name Court of Corvids, and so on and so forth. So before we get into the story, let's go into how I have laid out my information. So if you notice over here on the far left-hand side, you're going to see that there is a section that has like rainbow colored tabs, and then there's a section that has some gray tabs. So those gray tabs are all password protected. Only I can see them. I have a password that I have to put in every single time to be able to see this. And the reason I did that is because I'm going to move this camera over just a hair. I'm going to actually be giving my players access to this so that they're able to take some digital notes that I can see, as well as see some information about what's going on in the world. And they don't always have to constantly remember what was that NPC's name, or, what did we do with them? Isn't that person, or what was their ancestry? All of that information is going to be put here for them. And for me, to be honest with you. So let's start with player information, right? So I put this together, and I have to thank one of our viewers. They actually sent me their Starfinder campaign that they're running and the setup that they're using in OneNote. And I loved it. And so I was like, hey, can I see all of this? And they said yes. So I took that, and I've refinagled and kind of moved things around to make it look a little bit more visually appealing for myself, and be able to find information a little bit better. So the players section is going to be basically the player's character sheet. This is going to be all of their stats, their ancestry, their background, their class, their gender, their age, size, their level. All of that information is going to be here. And we're going to have that all in their basic stat section. And then down here is going to actually be their roles that they're going to be making. So if, let's just say there's a situation where I need to make a passive roll, I don't have to lean over to my player and say, what's your stealth? You know what I mean? Like, so I can actually roll for them. Well, I probably won't be doing stealth since it's kind of an active thing. Most of these skills are actually very active, but like information about occult or society or stuff like that, like if there's information that I want to give them or I feel like it's important for them, I might make a passive roll for them. Health, AC, all really good information to have, so that I'm able to turn around and say, okay, I rolled a 23. Instead of me saying, hey, does a 23 hit? I'm going to have that information right there. I can say, hey, I rolled a 23. That hits, blah, blah, blah. It's a reflex save. I rolled a 5, and I can be able to see what their information is. I can also see what their melee and ranged information. This is basically all of the information about the players, and it's right at my fingertips. I also have their relationship, and then eventually, once the players have a little bit more about what their age is, what life events that they've gone through, I'm going to actually have a history section so that I can turn around and be able to see, oh, okay, my players, have experienced this. Oh, because of this experience, it might be interesting to add into the game this other thing, right? And that information is all going to be here. If you notice that some of the text is actually blue with a line underneath it, right? So that's hyperlinked to another page. Now, I don't have all of the information in here because I don't have the Pathfinder 2nd Edition books yet, but I have put placeholders. So, for example, this player I have as a fighter. These are all placeholders. None of these things are correct for our players. So I click fighter, and it's actually going to take me to a page that will have all of the information about the fighter. Again, it's kind of a blank sheet right now because I haven't seen how it's been presented to me, and so I don't know how I want to present it to my players and make it easy for myself to reference. You'll also notice there was also a section for ancestry. I'm going to be having that as well. This is going to be all information about the ancestry that I think is either pertinent or might be fun to have easily accessible. Now, this is information I just pulled from the playtest, and that's kind of why it's there. I don't imagine that it's going to be crazy different from this. There will be a section below there that's going to have the ancestry feats, so I can always make reference to them, and if my players choose them, I can hyperlink them over to this section and be able to go, oh, hey, that's what that means. I don't always have to write a ton of things all over the place. You also notice that I have classes. I've already talked about that, ancestry. This is the important NPC section. So the important NPC section is currently a template, as you can see. If you notice, a lot of the text is also like barely visible, or like it's white text on a white background, and that's because I need to go through everything and reformat it. I was originally running through this, and it was all with the light mode for OneNote, and I decided that I wanted to be in the night mode or the dark mode, and so it automatically just reverses everything. But since I already had a light colored background, it then just turned around and inverted the black color, so it makes it a little bit harder to read. But eventually, I will have this all reformatted so it's actually visible and you can see all of the information that I need. Now, this is just a basic template. This is the template I use for the players, but this is going to only be used for players that are going to either be like a big bad or a person that their stats are important, because most of the stats aren't going to be that important, right? Like if I have a commoner or the bartender or something like that, you're not going to need to know what their stealth is or what their athletics is, or how much occult information do they have, right? So I actually have I'm working on a second template, which is going to be for the non combative or assistant based classes, and I've just basically put some basic information in here, and this is for the keepers, which if you're following Court of Corvids on Twitter, you will have gotten a little bit of information about them. And we'll come back to the keepers and why they're named, what they're named, and where they're from, and why all of that information. But we're going to just keep going through this, and then we'll come back to story. Next is some custom mechanics. As of right now, the only custom mechanic that I'm using is alignment. I'm not a big fan of the chaotic evil, chaotic good, lawful neutral. I find it too restricting in what a player is allowed to do. So I'm basically using a system that is esoteric magic. It's a left and right hand path. It's very different. It's not very different. It basically changes this blocky 9-point system into a spectrum. Players won't be, I am right hand path, I am left hand path. They will be, I am right hand leaning or I'm left hand leaning. And it's just more of like, whether it's almost kind of like chaotic and lawful, but at the end of the day, it's a spectrum. We'll have to figure out how much we are going to be using this system for paladins, if we have a paladin or someone that needs to have alignment specific aspects. I just am not a big fan of alignment as a whole, so I just kind of wanted to use something different, at least test something different. Hopefully I'll have this a little bit more rounded out a little bit later, and we can talk about it more in depth. The next section I have in here is just the rules section. And this is just information about the game. This is just basic rules. And this section is literally only perception as of right now, because it was the only thing that kind of came up while I was working on this. So that's why I have all of these. And all of these are straight from the playtest. I imagine that some of this will change. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't really matter, because it's what is dim light, what is bright light, what is light, what is darkness, dark vision, blind sight, all of the same information that all the other games have. It's just if I ever have a reference or ever need it, I can always go to this page and be able to easily have access to it versus trying to flip through a book and find it. Now, the next section is where we're going to actually get into the world and what the world is like and why it's the way it is. So the next section I have is just world information. So these are just what the world map looks like. And the world map isn't quite done because I haven't decided what program to use. If you have a program that you like, let me know. Like, hit me up in the chat right now or leave a comment once this video is on VOD. The next section is just basic information about the land. So right now we have Itineran, which is basically the name of the location in which they are, and the fact that they have 5 cities. And then the 5 cities have been labeled off in my world section. Next is the calendar. This calendar is literally pulled from Paizo. There is nothing special about this calendar as of yet. I basically just sat down and went through there and found out, oh, hey, they call Monday Moon Day. They call Tuesday Toil Day. And I've been going through it and kind of stealing some holidays or events that might happen in Galarian. Now, this game isn't going to be based in Galarian, but theoretically, it is a world that can have a place in Galarian. Does that make sense? Like, it's no specific location on the map, or at least I didn't take the information from there. The next is deities. This is all the same as Paizo. This is the information I pulled from the Wikipedia, and then I've placed here, and then the videos that we've been making. So Adrian, one of our content creators, has been making these really good videos where where he goes over 2 different Pathfinder gods. So I've been placing them in here. So if like, I need a little bit more information, or if I'm not in game, because I'm not going to watch a video while I'm in game. But if I'm out of game and I'm like, oh, I want to figure out what was up with this god, like why are they so important, blah blah blah. I've got those videos as references. All right, so that's my basic setup of how I've been putting the rules together. Now we're going to go into kind of how I came up with what and why I came up with what. I basically decided, let me figure out my password. Oh gosh. Apparently can't speak and type at the same time. So, the basic concept I had is I was like, okay, what story do I want to tell, right? So I have an affinity, and I really enjoy cults, and I really enjoy aliens and the supernatural. I listen to a lot of Last Podcast on the Left, which is like right down my aisle. And so I said, okay, oh gosh, I'm so sorry. And so I'm sitting there and I'm going, okay, what story do I want to tell? And so I wanted to figure out a good way that I was able to go and put every single serial killer, every single cult leader in a single world, and it not just be like the most chaotic and insane place, right? And I was trying to figure out with a really good concept of how I wanted to do this, and I said, okay, well, maybe each like section or each like individual arc will have a different big bad, and that big bad will be a different cult leader, and I will represent these cult leaders within the world as different evil beings, so like vampires, liches, undead, stuff like that. And I said, okay, So how do I introduce my players to this world without just flat out giving it away right from the beginning? It's like, okay, if all of these cults and all of these things exist, how do I have my players come to learn this with the viewers, right? Because I don't want to say like, cool, this world is full of cults. Here's this cult, here's this cult, there's this cult. The Heaven's Gate is ran by this person, and I don't think that would be fun for the players, nor do I think it would be fun for the viewers that everyone has the information except for them. So I said, okay, how about this is a new event? Maybe something opens up in the world or is created. And so I said, okay, how do I do that? How do I figure out that piece of information, right? So I decided that I wanted to have them in a world that was very peaceful, very calm, very relaxing, and basically as the world starts happening around them, that's when things start to get crazy. And so I said, okay, how do I do that? So I decided that the world in which they live on is a very peaceful land that is kind of unaware of the existence of the outside world. So I've decided that it would be really good if our players lived in an area that was kind of, maybe these cults exist in the world, but use this land as like a meeting ground. And so I started thinking about, okay, how does this work? Like, can I wrap this up in some sort of already existing conspiracy theory, right? And so I started looking and started researching. I was like, oh, Bohemian Grove. That is a great example. So if you don't know what the Bohemian Grove is, it's a location in California that ever so often a bunch of really rich and powerful people meet together, and they have this huge event where they have this giant sacrificial party, and they drink and they perform plays. It's the weirdest thing in the world. Now, we know that Bohemian Grove and this event exists, and it is a real thing. But there's belief and conspiracy behind that it's actually where a lot of these like superpowers come up with things. There's the belief that the atomic bomb was actually, the conversation started at Bohemian Grove. Now, so I took that information. Excuse me. So I took that information. I said, okay, maybe the town that they live in, they're unaware of Bohemian Grove. And so all of these evil entities in this world come to this location and have a meeting, and basically amongst themselves decide when they want to, like, who's going to do what during that year, who's going to commit what evil atrocities, and who's going to take control over different areas, and all of that information. And so I took that and I said, okay, they're going to meet there, but the players can't know about that. It'd be really fun if the players could discover that. Maybe that's their first arc. Their first arc will be the Bohemian Grove. So the idea behind that is that they live on Itineran, and years and years and years ago, these Titans were having a war, or at least this is what they believe, because none of them were alive at this time. These Titans were having this major war, and they lashed out, and a weapon came down flying from the sky and destroyed the world, except for where they lived. They were the only people to survive. And so while the world is still there, it's this blackening, hardship that when you go out there, you never survive. You never make it back out. And so you go out into this world and you never come back. And that's what their belief is. But what in reality is that once they cross this barrier, they discovered that there's an entirely new world that's out there. But the problem is that once this gate has been passed, unless you have great magical powers, you can't re-enter. And so they just assume that when these people leave, they just die because they've never heard back from them. And so they basically say, okay, well, we need to stay in these lands. We need to stay in these territories and be able to survive. We're just so lucky that the gods saved us. So they decide that they have the celebration twice for 2 weeks a year, which is called the Grove, where everyone leaves the forests and leaves the nature, and everyone collects themselves inside of a city. And celebrates by having festivals and parties and plays, and shopkeepers open up shop in every single city, and they're just expected to buy and be merry and have fun. And while that's happening, in reality, or what they believe is they're leaving nature so that nature can heal themselves, right? But in reality, what's happening is Bohemian Grove is happening. All of these evil entities from outside the world are coming into this location, having this meeting and discussing amongst themselves and bartering and having all of that information. And so they're doing that. And the players are going to get a hint that something isn't right. And they're going to accidentally interrupt Bohemian Grove before any sort of decision making can happen. And so when they do that, what ends up happening is all of these evil entities leave without coming to a consensus of what the next year is going to do. And so when they do that, they disrupt the entire world, and all of these psychopaths and all of these cult leaders basically start fresh and decide that they're going to do whatever they want to do. So our players are going to be the catalyst, our players are going to be the catalyst that's actually going to start this entire massive meltdown of the world. This is also going to be the event that allows them to discover that there's a world outside of their world. And so they're going to have to figure out, well, we started this, we maybe should do something about that. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they come in and say, okay, well, it happened, oh darn, I'm just going to go out into the world and figure out what's going on because, the things that I've known my entire life aren't true. So that's the basic concept. So let's go into some of the rules and not rules, but some of the things that I've been building. So we're going to go into the world. Basic knowledge about the world. Itineran is after a massive war between Titans, Itineran became the last livable plot of land. A crushing blow wiped the planet, and clean. All known civilizations and power structures ended that day. All humanity came together to live as one, creating 5 small cities without one major government ruling them. They instead each assign one representative from that lives in each one of them, called the Keeper, who would talk amongst themselves to deal with major issues. So Keepers weren't actually a part of the world as a whole when I first created this idea. But I was talking to Avid, and I was discussing this with Avid, and he was actually mentioning, if there was people that were keeping this secret, and I was like, oh, that would be really interesting, because it's like, okay, well, if these people are meeting, what's preventing anyone from just walking into the forest? Is it just that, they're so religious, or they believe so much of this nature that they just don't do it? I mean, that sounds a little wild. But I thought, maybe the Keepers actually know what's going on in the world. And so the Keepers they're called Keepers because they're peacekeepers. They're the ones that go to other cities and discuss, hey, this is going on, or this is going on. What should I do with this? There's a trade issue, or there is a hunting issue between, 2 cities. The Keepers go together, they stay in a room, and they're not allowed out of this room until they've come up with an adequate solution that both sides are happy with, right? No major government that feels that they need to overstretch their power. It's just two people talking it out. And so that's what it is. But in reality, they're the secret keepers. So they're keeping the secret of this once a year event and preventing the players and everyone else from coming into the world and preventing them. I'm going to rephrase that. They're preventing the players from going and discovering this major secret that's happening, and all of this evil that's going on. So I entered the Keepers. Now, when I came to naming each of the cities, I didn't want to just like go to a random name generator. I wanted to have some sort of interesting kind of, I guess, nod or hint that there is something else that's going around. So each city is actually named after a different species of aliens that people believe in. Palladians, Lyran, like all of these are Anunnaki, are all these alien species that a lot of people believe that exist, and they have their own little wars, and it's like along the lines of like lizard people, right? Like the giant lizard people. So I started going into the lore of each individual alien race, and I decided that I would take some information from each one of them, and basically that would become the players or the keepers. So I started naming them. Let's see. See where this information I put. This started it. Yes, this is the source of all of my little alien notes. So I started going through and figuring out different pieces of information. It's not going to be in there about these aliens. And I decided that I was going to try and name each of the aliens based off of a known alien or prominent alien from that species. And so for the Palladians, city is highly influenced by human architecture, 2 or 3 story homes in a row, second floor normally larger than the first, families stacked on each floor, a mix between stone and wood. Indoor plumbing is there, but it is rudimentary. Large center of town that has most of the town's goods and services sold there. During the Grove, this expands out into the streets along the side, turning what is normally a very open bazaar into a tight maze. Now, I'm giving a little bit more information about the bazaar in for Palladian because I'm picking Palladian as the center point of where the story is going to be starting. All of the players know that this event is happening. The Grove is about to start, so they're heading to Palladian to find a place to live, or maybe some of the players already live in Palladian. But the only sort of restriction I gave the players is that you're all here. This is the place you're at. This is the event that's happening, and this is why you're here. Or not why you're here, but this is the place in which you need to be. Figure out why you're there. I wanted this to be kind of almost stereotypical, like medieval times, kind of like Victorian era homes, 2 stories, second story, the family, plumbing's down in the first floor. So second floor, they go to the bathroom and they wash their hands in a bucket and they throw it out into the streets. And that's the kind of direction I wanted to take this, because some of the other alien species are a little bit more like the Lyran are more of like a cat-like. So I was going to take more naturistic in that city. So each city is going to take a different representation from their alien species. Now, I haven't decided how much information I want to give to each of these locations because I don't know how much my players are actually going to venture out into them, right? So I basically want to have a high concept for each of the locations and kind of figure out what makes sense for that location and what doesn't make sense for that location. So high concept for Palladian, we know that they're going to be there. We have the high concept of what it's going to look like. We don't want to give any like sort of secret information here because this is the section that the players will have access to. So other information we need to know, heavily populated, oh gosh darn white text. Let's go ahead and make that legible. Heavily influenced. No, I already put heavily influenced by humans, so that doesn't make sense. We already have that it's like a human cultured area. We want to maybe have a breakdown. Maybe it's, let's say it's a 60% humans. Ooh, not 650. Let's say 60% humans. Let's see, we've got stone and wood, but this is more like handmade wood. So let's say that we've got maybe a 20% population. And I'm just giving random numbers. Dwarf. Now, the reason why I'm trying to give a population is that the idea behind this land and this area is the fact that the entire world is actually been destroyed. So the species, the different groups, don't congregate together. It's not like, oh, well, all of the dwarves are here, or all of the humans live here, or all of the elves live here. We want to kind of say that all land and all territory is kind of consumed and everyone lives everywhere. So let's see, we've got 60% human, 20% dwarves. Let's go. So we're looking at 80%. Let's look at 10% elves. Let's look at 5% halfling. And 5% other. So, very, very traditional, basic kind of situation we've got here. I'm not too worried about formatting right now because once I have the information, I know how I want to format this. Like, for example, I know that I want to put this in a table. So let's go ahead and put this in a table. We know, let's see. Let's back that up. Let's see. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So let's do this table as 2 by 6, right? So we will put each of this information. I like that other got split. So we had 5%. Other. Oh, why is this not always just black text? Oop. And so we'll just copy and paste this information. Like this will be, pretty easy to understand why I'm doing this. Just to kind of make it even, make it like legible and make it understandable. Sorry, I started it and now I have to finish it. So that's a problem I have. By the way, I know I didn't start by saying this, but if you notice on the left-hand side of the screen, there's like a little window that's got some Spotify. That is the music that I like to listen. I actually created a playlist where I like to play specific songs or specific music because it helps me get into like a process. So I can't play that music for you because YouTube algorithm wise, but that's kind of why it's there. It's just to kind of give you an example of this is the music that I want to listen to. Let's call this breakdown. So this is gonna here's a little secret for you all for organization if you want to ever use this program. So I have this here, but it doesn't make sense. So let's go ahead and not delete table. Let's delete row. let's actually create something out. Excuse me, something outside of the table. So we'll do break down. Hit that black text and just control. I might have to figure out a different way, but basically we want to have this table have like a title and it be able to be moved around with it. So I have to figure that out. So what other information do we want to know about plating? We've got like a basic concept. We've got a breakdown of species. Maybe we should figure out some shops, right? So let's make this also a table. So what information we need? We need the name of the shop. We need the type of equipment that they're selling. Maybe a shop owner. Is there any information that we can think that we might need on top of that? I'm just going to put 4 just in case we think of something. So this is going to be the header. So we'll start with shop name. Gosh darn tootin' need black text. All right. So shop name, owner name, and goods sold. All right, so now that we have that, let's go ahead and insert that. I'm going to say Palladian is a decent sized location. It's got probably, magical items. It's probably got hunting goods, so we're going to be thinking about, furs. We're definitely having 2 different food places, so we've got 4 already. So magic, hunting goods, food, maybe a blacksmith. Let's see. Let's start with that. So goods sold, magic. Next one will be food. And this is not our inns, right? We want to keep our inns, our places of businesses that our players are going to frequent and stay at often in a separate chart versus like stores that they may just stop off at once at a time. We said we wanted to have 2 food locations. The next one will be our hunting supplies. And then a blacksmith. It's 5. I think that's good for now. So let's come up with a what's I can think of so this will be like the overall goods. Maybe the next thing is like a goods breakdown. So this will definitely be some potions, scrolls. This is all going to be low level stuff. Like there's no like high wizards that live here. So some potions, squirrels, magical trinkets. So let's have this owned by. We need a good name. Let's go to, I don't want to go to a name generator. I'm not a big fan of name generators, so that's why I don't really want to go to one. I don't know why I'm thinking Phineas, because, immediately I'm like, oh, Phineas and Ferb, but that's not really one I want to go to. So we'll leave the shop names and the names of the owners blank. This is something that we'll need to come back to. So for the food stores, this is just going to be your basics, fruits, veggies. What else do we need here? I think fruits and veggies, and we'll leave this food place as a meat market. So hunting supplies, this is going to be furs, traps, wood-based weaponry. So like this will be your staves, your bows, your arrows. So we'll just put those staff. Okay, so we've got furs, traps, staves, bows, arrows. And blacksmith will be metal, armor, and metal. We don't need to put metal swords. Swords, shields. I want to name this place Cold Iron. So this is going to be the Cold Iron Palladian. I feel okay. Let's do the next thing we want to do is let's go ahead and talk about the inns. This is probably not going to have that many inns, because these are small towns. While the events of the Grove are huge, it's probably going to be like one or two different inns that are in this location, and then everyone else is just like staying at a friend's house. Because again, these aren't huge towns. These are people that know each other. So let's do two inns. We need the name of the inn, the barkeep or the person that runs it, and then maybe room types and prices. So let's do that. So I should insert a row below because we know we need to have two. So we've got name. Oh, gosh darn. Let's fix that. Name. Owner name. This is room types. Or we can also do this as goods. This is goods. Goods sold. And then prices. Excuse me, I feel like I have to sneeze. So goods sold is going to be, you know, let's have like a lower end and a higher end, right? So let's work on our lower end. So the food, it's going to sell some basic food. So we'll just do some rye bread, and you know, their fanciest plate maybe has some grapes. Then we're also going to do rye bread, grapes. They're going to have single rooms. Well, let's single rooms, and we'll do like almost like a hostel level, like so just be like a central room that will have a ton of different people that are going to come in. I feel like I want to format this a little bit different. Maybe I want to make this two different charts, one for each, and kind of give a breakdown, especially if I'm going to use prices. Yeah, I think I do. Let's just put all the basic information in, and then we'll go from there. So we don't know how the gold system is going to work, at least like heavily. So we'll just leave that. But we know we want to do GP as our main format, and we want to also make sure that we know that this is like our cheaper location. So we'll just put one gold piece and leave it at that. Our higher end location will definitely have cheese, bread. They've got chicken. You know, gotta have chicken everywhere. And maybe even for dinner they'll have some steak. Single room, and then master. Have like a major, like very nice level, and then just to remind us later. I mean, you can tell by what they're providing. So this will be basic, really good information for not only our players to have. Some of this might be information that I move over later on to just a GM specific section. Like, you know, I maybe not want to give them the price of everything. Maybe I want to have that price, and depending on their behavior in the story, I might want to turn around and be like, oh, well, you've been kind of a dick, or you've broken glasses, or you haven't been behaving. So instead of this one gold piece to make up some of the gold that we've lost, we're going to turn around and increase this price, by 3 gold. So this information, and without having specific information, you're not going to know the demographic breakdown, right? But that's here as well. So what other information do we think we have to know about a city? So we've got, we have the keeper's information. We know who the keeper is. We just need to get the information about the keeper. So what we'll do is we'll actually create a table here as well. We'll just leave a blank chart in there, just so that we've kind of got some basic formatting that we want to do. I know that this format is good, so I'm just going to do some basic format systems that I know that I want to do. So the text here is going to be the background color. How did I do it on players? Let's go over to players. What color is this background? Was it a highlight? No, it wasn't. Let's go back over to world. That didn't work. All right, well, I guess that will be something I do outside of stream. So yeah, what other information do we need to know? I can't think of anything specifically that we need to have. So let's go ahead and move on to the next location. So we know we kind of want to keep this same format. So we can grab, copy, and paste this over to the other section. But let's go ahead and just put a dash there, since we don't want to maintain the same information. We just know that we want to at least have some of the basic information that's there. So let's figure out what is up with this location. So let's go to the GM screen. Let's pop up this oh, so great, well put together alien website. And let's find some information that we might need. So Arcturians, so let's go over to them. Palladians, Lyran, Arcturia. No. Is that not? Did I just skip it? I guess I could have this ghetto website up off to the side, right? So let's see. So one of the most advanced species in the galaxy, the Arcturians are the multidimensional beings with 3 fingers. Okay. Sure, that's a very important piece of information, I guess. They're great teachers and vibrational beings. They sense the vibrational aspects of reality. Already these seem very elfish kind of features. So let's kind of make this a natural, higher educational, emotional kind of world, right? So let's go ahead and bring this guy full. So is there any sort of structural information that we know that this could work in from history? Not too much. So we'll have to dip into the fantasy in this one. So let's think like an elven community. While not run like an elven home, the structures So, while not run like an elven home, the structures are very much built to look like what their homes once look look like what their homes once were. Not where. So we'll do smooth stone structures meant to last tests of time. So just putting some basic information in here. We know that this is going to be an elven community based off of the alien ancestry that is there. I think that this is such a magical area. I would say that even this would probably have 2 magical locations. And maybe not even a blacksmith. Is maybe instead of blacksmith, maybe we do a stone cutter. Now, the information that we're putting here, we have to remember that we don't know how deep that they're going to go into here. So it's kind of like this GM question that you have to ask yourself is like, how much information do I really want to build in this community if my players are never going to go here, right? Since we know Palladian is where they're going to be starting, we know for a fact that they're at least going to be there. But do we want to put in-depth character stories behind each individual shop owner, or do we just want to have some basic information and then while the events occur live on stream, we turn around and take those notes, So it's like, okay, well, we know that it's got 2 magic shops, a food supply store, and it's got a hunting supply and a stone cutter. So that's already a ton of information for their players, for our players. So that's probably enough information. And then we can then turn around and they go, oh, well, what's the difference between the magic shops? So we've got, one carries potions, scrolls, and magical trinkets, while the other one focuses primarily on wands, staves, and maybe they're a seer. Maybe they also can see into the future. So we have seers. Foods. This is probably we'll keep this to mostly elfin food, I guess, which I don't really know. So they always seem stereotypically dainty and thin and elongated. So maybe these are just basically your easily accessible like vegan option. Like maybe the town's completely vegan. And maybe that's why it's kind of like this naturey, like so stone buildings. Maybe there's like vines wrapping around these homes. So 100% vegan. Why not? Like, why? There's no reason for us to not make these decisions because it's not going to directly affect. But it is kind of like this really interesting, like tiny little piece of the game that turns around and makes it a little bit more interesting for the players. So they go into town and it's like, oh, this is 100%, like they're going to go to the inn, right? And like, oh, I want chicken, right? Oh, I've got the gold. Let's throw this gold down. I want chicken. And we're like, I'm sorry, we only supply vegan options. This entire town is 100% natural. We grow and that's all we eat. And then you're just like, that's a very interesting decision that isn't so like hard left for your players. Like it's not something that is so weird. Like you go into a town and magic is completely banned and you're just like, wait, what? Hold on. Let's go back. It's just more of a flavor or a color than it is more of a like hard decision based off of some sort of like historical information, right? This isn't like the person that's, in charge of this town, which again, there is no major government, isn't like, oh, everyone must be vegan because I'm a half pig person. It's just like, it's just a thing. But I only wanted to stream for about an hour and we're either past that or we are about to hit that. So I'm going to stop tonight. If you guys like this and you want me to do this a little bit more often, let me know in the comments section that you want to see this more often. And I will go more into detail into the actual creation of each of these locations and tell you more information about things. Today was just basically like, this is how I set my stuff up. Well, I don't need to explain that every single time unless there's some sort of drastic change of how I'm doing my setup. So that's going to be it for me. Again, like I said, if you liked this, make sure to let me know down in the comments. If you're on Twitter, go ahead and follow at Court of Corvids. That is the official Twitter for the live stream. I will be giving little bits of information in between these live streams about the world. And that's going to be spoiler free. That's going to be information that is like there and it exists and it's just like known information. It's not going to be like the keepers are really secret keepers, not peacekeepers. Like we were talking about earlier. Yeah, and if you want to follow me on Twitter, my Twitter is at IndigoQT. And you can follow Q Times as a whole at _Q Times. So until next time, everyone, have a good one.